You know what drives me a little crazy? Every single morning, millions of people in this country make their coffee, pull out the filter, and just toss the grounds right into the trash without a second thought. And I get it. I used to do the exact same thing. But here's what changed my mind. A while back, I was talking to a guy who runs a small organic farm about an hour outside the city. Super knowledgeable, been doing this for decades. And I asked him what his secret was for his soil, because his tomatoes were ridiculous. Big, deep red, the kind you can't find in any store. He pointed to a big bucket by his back door, packed full of used coffee grounds. He said he gets them for free from 3 different coffee shops every single week. Has been doing it for years. That conversation stuck with me, because this wasn't some internet tip. This was a guy who actually knows what he's doing, using something the rest of us throw away every morning. So I went down a rabbit hole. Talked to a few other people, a chef, a cleaning professional, a dermatologist friend of mine who I pestered with questions. And what I found out genuinely surprised me. Not just the number of uses, but specifically why these things work. The actual science behind it. That's what we're doing today. I'm going to walk you through what the people who actually know this stuff do with their used coffee grounds. And I'll tell you exactly why each one works, not just that it works. Let's get into it. What makes coffee grounds so useful in the first place? Before we get into the specific uses, I want to spend a minute on something most videos skip entirely. Because understanding why coffee grounds are useful makes everything else make a lot more sense. Used coffee grounds are packed with nitrogen. That's one of the 3 big nutrients that plants need, along with phosphorus and potassium. And it's the one that drives leafy green growth and overall plant health. The grounds also have a slightly acidic pH, typically somewhere between 6.0 and 6.5 after brewing, which matters a lot for certain plants. Here's something most people don't realize. The caffeine doesn't fully extract during brewing. About 30 to 40% of the caffeine stays in the grounds even after you've made your coffee. And caffeine turns out to be a natural insect repellent. Insects and many pests are extremely sensitive to it. That's not a coincidence. Coffee plants evolved to produce caffeine specifically to deter bugs from eating them. So when you sprinkle grounds in your garden, you're essentially using the same defense mechanism the coffee plant itself uses. Then there's the physical structure of the grounds. They're coarse and slightly abrasive at a microscopic level, which makes them excellent for scrubbing. But they're also porous, meaning they can absorb and trap odor molecules. That's the same reason activated charcoal works as a deodorizer. Coffee grounds do something similar, just with extra steps. One more thing worth knowing. Coffee grounds are what's called a nitrogen-rich green in composting. That means they break down relatively fast and generate heat in a compost pile, which speeds up the whole decomposition process. Okay, now that you know the why, the uses are going to make a lot more sense. Use 1. The garden trick that professionals actually use. Let me start with what got me into this in the first place, the garden. I mentioned the farmer. What he does is specific, and it's worth explaining properly because there's a wrong way and a right way to do this. The wrong way, which a lot of people do, is just dumping a thick layer of dry coffee grounds directly around their plants. Here's the problem with that. Dry grounds can form a crust on the soil surface that actually repels water instead of letting it soak through. So you're inadvertently creating a barrier around the roots of the plant you're trying to help. The right way is to mix grounds into the top inch or 2 of soil, or combine them with other organic material before applying. If you're making compost, coffee grounds are gold. They heat up the pile and speed up decomposition. Worms are also genuinely attracted to coffee grounds, which is a good thing. More worms means better soil aeration and faster breakdown of organic matter. For which plants benefit most? Blueberries, tomatoes, roses, azaleas, hydrangeas, and most vegetables do very well with coffee grounds mixed into their soil. These are all acid-loving or nitrogen-hungry plants. For plants that prefer alkaline soil, like lavender, asparagus, or most succulents, you want to be more careful and use grounds sparingly. One thing the farmer told me that I thought was interesting. He saves his grounds in a 5-gallon bucket with a bit of water, essentially making a coffee tea, and then waters his plants with it diluted. This delivers the nutrients in liquid form so they get into the root zone faster. I've tried this with my tomato plants and honestly, the difference was noticeable. Use 2. The meat rub chefs have been using for years. This one surprised me when I first heard it, and then it made complete sense once I understood why it works. A lot of professional chefs and barbecue competitors use coffee in their dry rubs for beef and pork. Not the brewed coffee. The grounds themselves, rub directly into the meat before cooking. Here's what's happening chemically. Coffee grounds contain natural acids and compounds, specifically chlorogenic acid and some enzymes, that actually break down the protein fibers in meat. So you get 2 benefits at once. The meat becomes more tender, and the grounds form a dark, slightly smoky crust when the surface hits high heat. That crust is called a Maillard reaction, the same browning reaction that happens when you sear any protein. But the coffee compounds intensify it and add serious depth of flavor. The basic ratio that works well: 1 tablespoon of finely ground coffee for every pound of beef or pork. Combine it with salt, black pepper, smoked paprika, and a touch of garlic powder. Rub it in firmly, let it sit for at least 2 hours in the fridge. Overnight is better. Then cook it the way you normally would. Grill, oven, cast iron, it works with all of them. I'll be honest with you. I was skeptical the first time I tried this on a chuck roast. The result was genuinely one of the better pieces of beef I've cooked at home. The crust was incredible, and the coffee flavor was subtle, almost smoky. Not overwhelming at all. My wife asked what I did differently. I said, trade secret. It also works for chicken thighs if you want something a bit lighter. Just use less grounds and don't let it sit as long, since chicken doesn't need as much tenderizing. Use 3. Odor control that actually works, and why most people do it wrong. Here's one most people have heard of but usually get wrong. Yes, you can put coffee grounds in your fridge to absorb odors. They work because of the porous structure I mentioned earlier. The grounds physically trap volatile odor molecules. But there's a critical step almost everyone skips. You need to dry the grounds first. Wet or damp coffee grounds left in a closed environment like your fridge will start to grow mold within a few days. And moldy coffee grounds in your fridge is significantly worse than whatever smell you were trying to eliminate in the first place. So dry them out. Spread them thin on a baking sheet, let them air dry for a day, then put them in a small open bowl or jar in the back of your fridge. Swap them out every 2 to 3 weeks. The same principle works in other places. A small jar of dry grounds in your car, tucked under a seat, handles that stale car smell better than most air fresheners, which just mask odor rather than absorb it. I keep a small container in my gym bag now. Works much better than the dryer sheet I used to toss in there. And here's one that genuinely changed how I cook. Keep a small container of dry coffee grounds right next to your kitchen sink. After you chop garlic or onions or handle raw fish, rub a small handful of grounds over your hands with a little water before you wash them. The grounds exfoliate the skin, while the coffee neutralizes the odor compounds, specifically the sulfur-based molecules that make garlic and onions smell so persistent. Soap alone often doesn't cut it, because those sulfur compounds bind to skin oils. The grounds deal with both problems at once. Use 4. The cleaning use that replaced a product in my kitchen. This is one I use regularly now, and it replaced something I used to buy. Used coffee grounds are a natural abrasive scrub. The particle size is actually perfect for cleaning. Coarse enough to scrub off baked-on food and grease. Fine enough not to scratch most cookware surfaces. Here's how I use them specifically. When I've got a cast iron pan or a stainless steel pot with something burned on the bottom, you know that layer of scorched food that just laughs at your dish soap. I dump a couple tablespoons of grounds into the pan, add enough water to make a loose paste, and scrub with a dish brush. 2 or 3 minutes of light scrubbing, and it's clean in a way that used to take me twice as long with a scrub pad. The grounds also work on your kitchen sink, especially if you've got a stainless steel sink that's looking dull. Scrub with grounds and then rinse thoroughly. Brings back some of the shine. One thing to be careful about: don't use grounds on non-stick cookware. The abrasiveness that makes them great on cast iron and stainless is the same thing that'll damage a non-stick surface over time. Same goes for painted surfaces or anything with a delicate finish. Also important, rinse the grounds out completely. They're fine particles, and if you leave them sitting on a surface, they'll stain. Particularly light-colored countertops or grout lines. Rinse well, and you're good. Use 5. The skin benefit that a dermatologist friend confirmed. I want to be upfront about something here, because this topic gets overhyped online, and I'd rather give you an accurate picture. Coffee grounds as a physical exfoliant for skin, that part is legitimate. The abrasive texture removes dead skin cells and improves circulation to the surface. You can make a simple body scrub by mixing used grounds with coconut oil or honey, roughly half and half, and using it in the shower on legs, arms, and feet. Rinse thoroughly afterward. Now, the caffeine part. Some beauty products with coffee grounds claim they reduce cellulite or dramatically tighten skin. My dermatologist friend was pretty blunt about this. The evidence for topical caffeine doing anything significant to cellulite is thin. There's some evidence that it can temporarily constrict blood vessels and reduce minor puffiness, which is why it's used in some eye creams, but it's not going to produce dramatic results. What is solid is the under-eye use. If you wake up with puffy eyes, which I do more than I'd like to admit, especially after a late night, a simple paste of cool used grounds mixed with a tiny bit of water, gently patted under the eyes and left for 10 minutes, then rinsed off, does actually reduce puffiness temporarily. The caffeine constricts blood vessels, and the cool temperature helps with the swelling. It's not a miracle, but it works. The exfoliation benefit is real and worth using. Just don't expect the grounds to do things that would require actual medical treatment. If you're enjoying this so far and picking up something useful, a quick like on this video goes a long way. It helps YouTube understand this is content worth showing to more people, and honestly, it keeps me going with these deep dives. Okay, back to it. Use 6. The pest control method that uses what the plant already knew. We talked earlier about how the caffeine in coffee grounds acts as a natural insect deterrent. Let me be specific about how to actually use this. For outdoor pests, ants, slugs, snails, spreading a ring of used grounds around the base of plants creates a barrier they avoid. The caffeine is toxic to many insects at high enough concentrations, and the texture of the grounds is abrasive to slugs and snails specifically. Their soft bodies don't like crossing a rough surface. For mosquitoes, here's a technique that actually comes from research and not just folk wisdom. Burning dried coffee grounds produces smoke that mosquitoes find strongly repellent. Take completely dry, used grounds, put them in a small, fireproof dish or on a piece of foil and light them. They'll smolder like incense. Use this outside on your porch or patio when you're trying to enjoy an evening without getting eaten alive. Works genuinely well. The key with both of these, the grounds need to be relatively fresh. Old grounds that have been sitting around lose some of their potency. Use grounds within a week of brewing for best results outdoors. One thing I'll note honestly, this is not as powerful as chemical pesticides. It's not going to eliminate a serious infestation. But for general deterrence and for people who don't want to spray chemicals around food plants, it's a solid option. Use 7. The Starbucks trick most people don't know about. This one is specifically for people who want more grounds than they produce themselves, and it's something I confirmed works at multiple locations. Many Starbucks locations, and some other coffee chains, will give you their used grounds for free if you ask. They bag them up and either give them to customers or compost them. Some locations even have bags sitting out near the door with a sign. The program has gone in and out over the years and varies by location, but at minimum, it's worth asking. The reason this matters: some of the uses I've described, garden fertilizer, compost addition, pest control, you need meaningful quantities for them to have real impact. One day's worth of grounds from your kitchen might not be enough, but if you can get a few pounds from a local coffee shop, you've got enough to actually do something with for your garden. Local independent coffee shops are often even more willing. They deal with pounds of grounds every day, and most are happy to have someone take them rather than throwing them in the trash. I started doing this with a cafe near my house. I bring an empty container once a week. They fill it up. It costs me nothing, and I've had enough grounds for my garden all season. Use 8. The fireplace hack that's almost too simple. Quick one, but I include it because it's genuinely useful, and almost nobody knows about it. Cleaning a fireplace is a messy job. The ash is incredibly fine and light. The moment you start scooping it, it becomes airborne and settles on everything in the room. Your furniture, your clothes, the carpet. Take a handful of damp, used coffee grounds, not dripping wet, just moist, and scatter them over the cooled ash before you start cleaning. The weight and moisture from the grounds binds to the fine ash particles and prevents them from becoming airborne when you scoop. It turns a job that usually means vacuuming afterward into one where you just scoop and you're done. Small thing. Makes a real difference. Use 9. The candle you can make for almost free. This one is a bit more involved, but worth mentioning because the end result is genuinely impressive and costs almost nothing. You can make a coffee-scented candle using used grounds embedded in wax. Here's the basic method. Melt candle wax using a double boiler, or carefully in a microwave, until it's fully liquid. Attach a wick to the center of a small jar. Pour a thin layer of wax, then add a layer of dried coffee grounds, then another layer of wax, and repeat until the jar is full. Let it cool completely before trimming the wick and lighting. The result is a candle that smells genuinely like fresh coffee while burning. If you know what coffee-scented candles cost in stores, usually somewhere between $15 and $30 for a decent one, and you consider that you're making it from something you were going to throw away, it's a pretty remarkable trade. I've made these a few times, and they've been good gifts. The layered look also ends up being attractive. You can see the dark grounds between the layers of wax. Use 10. What to do with grounds you can't use right away. This is practical advice for the reality that you might not have a use for grounds every single day. If you're accumulating more grounds than you're currently using, here's how to store them. Let them dry completely first. Spread them thin on a baking sheet and let them air dry for several hours. Once dry, they can be stored in a sealed container or even a Ziploc bag at room temperature for several weeks without issue. If you're not composting yet, this is honestly the best reason to start. Coffee grounds are one of the easiest and most beneficial things to add to a compost pile. They accelerate decomposition, attract worms, and the end result, when mixed with brown materials like leaves or cardboard, is some of the best natural fertilizer you can put in your garden. No cost, just patience. And if you truly have more than you can use and no garden, many community gardens and local farms will take used coffee grounds as a donation. A quick search for community gardens in your area is worth it. You're giving away something useful instead of filling up a landfill with it. Use 11. The ice traction trick for winter. Last one, and this is one for those of you in places that get real winters. Rock salt and ice melt products are effective, but they're corrosive. They damage concrete and pavers over time, and they're harmful to pets and plants. The salt residue gets tracked inside and can damage floors. It's also not cheap if you're buying it all winter. Coffee grounds, sprinkled over icy steps or a walkway, don't melt ice the way salt does, but they provide grit and traction, similar to sand, which is actually what prevents slipping in most situations. The dark color of the grounds also absorbs heat from sunlight, which helps the ice melt faster naturally. For a patch of ice on your front steps, a handful of grounds gives you better grip for a fraction of what you'd pay for commercial products. If you're using grounds for other purposes throughout the year, save a batch specifically for winter. Store them dry and sealed, and they'll keep perfectly until you need them. All right, let's land this. 11 uses. And honestly, I could have kept going. There are a few more I didn't get into because I wanted to focus on the ones that are actually practical for most people, not just theoretically interesting. The thing I keep coming back to is that original conversation with the farmer. The guy wasn't doing anything fancy. He was just paying attention to something most of us ignore. And he was getting results that people with expensive fertilizers and garden products couldn't match. That's kind of the whole mindset I try to bring to this channel. Not that you should make everything complicated or turn your kitchen into a science lab, just that a lot of the things we buy solutions for, we already have those solutions. We just haven't noticed yet. The coffee grounds are the easy version. Every morning you make a cup, maybe 2 or 3, and you generate a small supply of something that can clean your pots, feed your garden, keep the mosquitoes away, and tenderize your steak. All for free. All from something you were going to throw away. If any of this landed with you, or if there's a use I missed that you've personally tried, leave it in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious what people have figured out on their own that I haven't come across yet. Some of the best things I've learned on this topic came from people who just experimented and found something that worked. And if someone you know drinks coffee every day and has never thought about any of this, well, you know what to do. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.